Just straight water, brother.
Yeah.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Straight water. Look, we all have our vices, you know what I mean? So you got to balance them out in other ways. I've said it many times. Like Adam would always say, oh, when I work out, it makes me not want to drink. Pouring out for a man. And I would always say, I work out so I can justify my drinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think there's a balancing act there. You do that type of stuff and you feel better about yourself. And I'll tell you
everything in moderation, including moderation.
And I'll tell you one thing. The drinks taste better.
Of course.
By the way,
when you feel like you earn one, it's way better.
Yeah. I deserve this. Speaking of moderation, you see Bud Light partnered with Shane Gillis?
No.
Yeah. That's a strong, responsible drinking promotion right there.
Better than their last promotion with someone else.
Oh, dude, Mark, just real quick before we get started, happy to have you guys with us. Pull up Mark Norman's most recent. You are going to die when you see this. I just want you to see it. You'll see it. The Shane Gillis one. I want you to see this Mark Norman tweet. It is pure gold. Pure gold.
From trans to trans fat.
That's good tweet. Yeah. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to the Stochastic.com NBA strategy show. 10 games today, only 9 though on the slate. They knocked off the 9 p.m. game. So we've got 8 games tipping off between 7 and 8 p.m. That's kind of cool, depending on who you are. But yeah, fun slate. A lot of injuries to talk about. A few back-to-backs we'll get into. I had a question for you before we even get started. Halliburton's played, what, like 22 minutes in the 2 games since he's been back? 22 minutes on average. Do you think he plays tonight and they just give him like another 22?
Maybe. I don't have a great feel for it.
Definitely possible he just doesn't play.
I think not playing seems like the most likely scenario, but the fact that it's Sacramento just like adds that little twinge of maybe he wants to if he can.
Could be. Yeah, massive total in that game. Meanwhile, 211 total between Orlando and Minnesota. 211.
Great game, but not for DFS. Although Minnesota looks better than you'd think.
Also, a lot of huge spreads too. 11.5, 8.5, 8, 16, 8, 8. A lot of games that could potentially get out of hand here. Let's break it all down, man. Make it happen. Glad you guys can be with us. Take 1 single second, if you don't mind. Humbly ask you to atone for your sins here on the NBA Strategy Show. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Get us north of 100K. And if you're listening or watching after the fact, leave a comment down below. And always feel free to listen in podcast form. It's out there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you want to listen, we got you covered. So don't forget about that. What's up?
I can't stop thinking about Shane being like the new Budweiser frog.
Bud Light. Yeah, but it is.
But dude, like, so you get like the Bud, the Wise, and the and then I can't say it on this stream, but there's something that Shane says pretty regularly as a response to jokes that I think would be really funny if he did it in that same sort of way. I can't say it.
You have to tell me. Yeah, not now. I don't want to get in trouble. But I just watched I'm not finished yet, but the Kill Tony episode just had him and McCusker. Yeah. Just had him and McCusker on. And
yeah, I saw it.
They're doing like the stadium.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Very good stuff. Very good stuff. So I will finish that at some point tonight, but it's time to talk basketball. Starting on time today, we're going to make this a priority going forward. I mean, if nothing else, you hit the thumbs up for everyone getting started here on time.
I hit my thumbs up already.
So did I. We're in business. We've done our part. We've done our shit.
I didn't do that.
All right. Well, you will now.
I don't have it in front of me.
That's okay. We'll get there.
I watch it I have us up in the studio, not on the regular YouTube page.
Yeah, I get that. I don't. I just throw it up on the YouTube page, but it is what it is. Is there a delay on the studio too?
It's the same as everything else.
That's what I'm saying. It's the same
Yeah,
delay as you would see.
yeah.
If
It's just
anyone
it's
else
got,
watched.
the chat's built in. It shows me all like the stream concurrent viewers and everything like that. I like having all that stuff in front of me.
Clippers and Detroit Pistons, 238.5 total. Yeah. So, all right. Huge favorites for the Clippers. Cade's expected to play, I believe, right? We should be getting Cade Cunningham. I'm not sure how much of a difference that's going to make at this point. Isaiah Stewart, though, out for Detroit. That's really outside of Zubats, who we knew was out. Like, that's really the only piece of information here. What do we look? What's the other piece?
No, you are missing the key piece for all of this.
What's the key piece?
Mike Muscala out, concussion protocol. Mike Muscala started last game and got a concussion
with Stewart out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we have another new starter.
So who do you think it's going to be?
Well, if we go based on the last game, it's Danilo Gallinari.
Did he start the second half?
He did, and he played quite a bit. And he played quite a bit in the first half, too.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Clippers first then. Then we can get into this Detroit team. So LA is a huge favorite, but that doesn't necessarily mean much, particularly on a 9-game slate. Leonard and Harden both 8,800. Paul George 7,900 on DraftKings, getting virtually no ownership, but Leonard and Harden getting 8% apiece. I suppose looking at this game, if it were to stay somewhat competitive with a pretty high total, they could look good. You're not playing this for a blowout, but at the same time, things could get squirrely pretty quick against this Pistons squad. Do you have any interest in these two top options for the Clippers?
I do. I have, well, in one of them at least. I have Kawhi right at the field. I have 10%. He's right around that mark. He's 7% optimal. I don't have much Harden. He's the other guy that I think you can get to. The rest of these guys are really unappealing. It should be a better spot, but all of these prices are where they're supposed to be. And like Paul George isn't going to play enough minutes where I think he matters, but 7,900 is at least an interesting price tag. But I think he's going to be in that like 28 to 32 minute range instead of 35 or 36. All told, the only guy that I think anybody should really be looking at is Kawhi.
The other side's a lot more interesting. As you mentioned, Muscala out, Isaiah Stewart out. So we had seen Muscala get opportunities before, and his minutes were still kind of like underwhelming, but he only played I'm looking at it now, 4 minutes. Yeah. And then who came in? Knox came in for him.
Yeah.
Gallinari started the second half. I mean, he didn't really play that much in the second half.
I mean, he backed up Jalen Duren for every other center minute, and then they just closed normal then with Burks over in that Muscala spot. But Gallo was the full backup center and then also played alongside Jalen Duren.
So how many minutes are you giving it?
I gave him 22. I think he's very interesting at 22 minutes, given the fact that he is 3,300. There's not much that is interesting for this team. Like, if it happens to be Knox and you give him, 24, 26 minutes, he's not going to be all that great because he's only like a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy. What you're really hoping for is that they go back to Gallo and they run those two guys as the centers, but Gallo just staggers. I think that could be what we see. I'm totally cool with that sort of rotation. But I don't really see anything else that I would want to get to for Detroit. You would have to get like a very odd starter that you weren't expecting for it to be interesting.
Yeah, even last game though, we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys play 16 plus minutes.
Yeah,
like
they're not a fun team.
Sasser played 10. Is it also possible that this whole center rotation, assuming that let's just say they close with what they closed with last time, if the game's even close, then you're losing more minutes to one of those guys. Like, is it possible that there's just not enough for anyone to really be viable?
Yeah, my guess is that if Gallo starts, I think he's the only guy you actually care about. And then if he doesn't, whoever that is can be a little bit more interesting. But I think the easier way to describe it is you don't really like Boyan, you don't really like Cade. You're not really interested in going to Monty Morris or Marcus Sasser. Like Duren is okay at 7,100, but we're going to have 18 plus centers that we could roster today. So he's not going to be any sort of priority. I mean, we have just comically low optimal rates on everybody. So I just don't see it.
All right. Well, then let's keep going because there's some other spots that we're going to be getting to that appear a lot more appealing. Yeah, what's going on with this Jimmy Butler like trade rumor stuff? I know his agent said there's no way he's leaving Miami, but I saw that getting stirred. I saw a little dust up with all of that on Twitter and
yeah, it's just all those shitty Twitter accounts that all
like
post
it doesn't mean
garbage,
anything.
fake bullshit over and over again. I block them every time I can get to it.
It can't mean a single thing in a spot like this. But I'm saying
those Twitter accounts are gross, man.
They're super gross, but it was enough to get the attention of Jimmy Butler's agent, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he had
to come
it's
out.
Annoying.
That's because so many dumb people are on Twitter.
Yeah, he came out and goes, like, "There's no way he's leaving Miami." So
no, they're certainly not trading him in the middle of the season.
Yeah, what would be the point of that? Like, what are you getting in return that continues your like keeps you as a competitor? Doesn't make any sense.
No, there's a 0% chance that Jimmy Butler gets traded in the middle of the season.
I'm just wondering why that even started.
Because they're not that good. They're on like a 5-game losing streak, so people need to make content for themselves.
Yeah, it's got to be what it is.
Yeah.
They're 8.5-point favorites against the team that's a whole lot worse in the Washington Wizards, 227.5 total. Duncan Robinson out for Miami. But aside from that, it feels like this team is mostly healthy for the first time in a little while, has been for the first time in a little while. Tyler Hero, 6,700, getting 13%. Bam, 8,400 on DraftKings, 11%. And ultimately, it's a good matchup. There's no denying that. But once you get this team that's pretty healthy, now you have Terry Rozier in the rotation as well. You obviously have Jimmy Butler. How do you square this as like a team that, okay, great matchup, but I still have to find ways to get to these guys, and many of them are similarly priced?
By the way, apparently Kendrick Perkins also said it on ESPN, so he's like the avatar of stupid people on Twitter, so that makes perfect sense.
Matter of fact, I believe the agent was actually responding to Kendrick Perkins specifically in a spot like this. Why would you even bother
taking Kendrick Perkins seriously? He's a moron, an absolute dope. Why would you listen to anything he says?
It is quite incredible that, I mean, everything done is just for engagement at this point.
It's so disgusting. Just be engaging and also smart. Is it that difficult to just not to be able to do that?
Yeah, and I think even a lot of people who are smart and engaging are smart in a manipulative sense, that they just know how to make things more sensational, right? So like even the smart people that know how to get engagement go, well, I can get more engagement by doing this.
I hate it so much.
It's not a fun place to be, man. It's really not.
It's not. It's not. Anyway, the Heat. We've got two guys in double digits of ownership. That's Tyler Hero at 13%. He's 6,700, point guard, shooting guard, right around a fantasy point per minute. Certainly looks better against Washington. And we've got Bam at 11%, 8,400, center only. 1.15 to 1.2 fantasy points per minute in this spot. They both look totally reasonable. I have 18% of Hero right now. To me, he is the best option you can get to from Miami. I'm also interested in Josh Richardson, 3,500. I got him in for 23 minutes. If you're just looking for value at the start of the day, I think he's that kind of guy. He's only 4% owned. I've got 10% at this moment. I don't have any Jimmy Butler. I don't have any Terry Rozier right now. You normally expect teams that face Washington to look a lot better, and these guys are all just sort of priced exactly where they should be now, and you still have that complicating factor of figuring out what this team is now that Terry Rozier is here.
What about on the other side where you're talking about a Wizards team that, I mean, objectively terrible, not a good matchup? It's funny because we do these shows, and even yesterday it was strange where you've got only 4 games. Of course, we did it before LeBron and AD were out. So, you know, that would have changed a lot, right? But we got through a bunch of these teams like, man, there's only 4 games. A lot of these teams are just really low owned, a lot of exposure going to Utah. And of course, some of that was redistributed to the Lakers. Yeah. But today with 9 games, you're just going to see so many more teams that aren't particularly appealing. Washington's not like blanked across the board, but looking at them and going, yeah, real priorities in Kuzma or Tyus Jones or Avdia is probably pretty difficult.
Ownership today in general is really flat across the board. It's all very similar for a lot of these teams. The one guy that I want to point out here is going to be Kyle Kuzma. We have him as the most optimal play from Washington at 12%. He's only 9% owned. He's in 18% of my lineups right now, playing at a 1.2 fantasy point per minute rate over the past 30 days. It's not the best spot in the world, but nothing is for Washington. He's just going to go out there, be projected for somewhere in that like 20, 21, 22 real point range. I think he's just a little bit undervalued at 7,700. We've seen his price be a lot higher this season with very little difference. We do want to hash out the Q tags that exist for Washington, but after that, this is just a team of filler. Like, they have some last guy in type dudes like Tyus Jones or Denny Avdia, or I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe Jordan Poole if he is in. I think Kuzma is the only guy you really want to look at.
All right. Sometimes I feel like we're shortchanging the audience when we go so quick on these, but there's not much you can really do on these teams or with these teams. And then we talk about a Phoenix Suns team that, I mean, this is like a night in and night out situation where you're not getting much of them, but now Bradley Beal, 6,500, pulling ownership at 26%. Aside from that, yeah, I mean, also, I should point out too that this is against an Atlanta team where we've got a 248.5 point total. So that's going to make a pretty considerable difference in a spot like this. I mean, you're talking about the highest on the slate. Atlanta plays at the 5th fastest pace in basketball. 120 defensive rating is 3rd worst in the league now. So, actually, hold on, I had the dates wrong, but I guarantee it's close because my dates aren't that far off. We have Atlanta defensive rating 27th out of 30, playing at the 4th fastest pace in basketball. So, yeah, Phoenix looks better today. Not overall, but they definitely look better today, particularly with some of these price points, looking at a point guard, shooting guard, Bradley Beal, than they have in previous games that you and I have talked about.
I'm way more interested in Durant than I am in Beal. I think Beal might be the most over-owned guy on this slate. I have no idea where 26% ownership is coming from. Point guard, shooting guard, 6,500, 0.93 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. He's got a points prop of 18.5, 4.5 assists, 4.5 rebounds. Like, that is just not the profile. He's like a 5x salary guy, which exists all over the place today. Countless other dudes in that range. I don't get it. I think he is massively, massively over-owned at this point. And that's what we're seeing in the leverage score. He's 14.5% optimal, 26% owned. One of those two things is going to change, and I expect it to be the ownership. I figure he comes down to that 10 to 15% range as we get closer to lock, and this stops being a thing. But if he's
if he comes down to 10 to 15, you still have little.
Well, no, then he's like a neutral play. But right now, with this massive ownership, if you're this negatively leveraged, but you're only getting up to like 14% optimal, that's just not interesting. He's the easiest dude you can get away from. Whereas for Kevin Durant,
he hasn't been good from a per minute stat. The only redeeming quality with Bradley Beal, outside of the I think it's a fine price point, if, as you said, the ownership comes down, is that in competitive games, you could be getting 38 minutes from him. Like, that's the one thing, is that the guy's going to play a lot of minutes, which he's always done when he's healthy. But yeah, 26% jumped off the page to me as well.
It's never hard to find 6K guards.
Yeah.
Like, just around him. Terry Rozier is $200 more than him. Devin Vassell is $200 more than him. Tyler Hero is $200 more than him. Brandon Miller, Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, all of these guys are within like $300 going up. Jaden Ivey, Vince Williams, even Tyus Jones at 6,200. Like, the whole area is inundated with plays, and there's nothing making Beal stand out other than the fact that it's just a really nice matchup against Atlanta. Now, if the ownership is 15%, then yeah, he's probably like a 15% guy. But if it's 26 and we're projecting 15 optimal, then he's just he's just a bad play in that rate. You got to get different elsewhere for no reason. Durant, I have 12%. He's 11% owned. We have him right around 10% optimal. 1.25 fantasy points per minute. Obviously, a nice spot for him against Atlanta. A nice spot for everybody on Phoenix. Atlanta, terrible defense, very fast-paced team. I just want to avoid that ownership on Beal if it exists.
I think you're right, though, on a 9-game slate. I don't see how that holds.
No. It's too big of a gap.
What if Booker's ownership holds at 5%?
It's just hard at the top. Like everybody just looks so similar. You've got Trey on the opposite side. You've got Steph at 9,400. You've got the actual priority in Shea at 10,300.
Yeah, against
And then
Charlotte.
you start dropping down to like 8,900 for a De'Aaron Fox, 8,800 for James Harden. It's just busy at the top. I think these guys look good, but I don't think they look great.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, SGA against Charlotte. The only concern there is that the game is over by halftime.
Yes, they're not very good. 16-point line.
16 points. Yep. So yeah, I mean, Booker 5. What ownership do we have coming in on SGA right now?
Like 20,
20,
20, 30, actually.
30?
Yeah.
Because Booker has had some ceiling games recently.
Yeah, he's pretty good, that Devin Booker.
Guy's incredible. Yeah, 5%. I had to throw it out there if nothing else, because against the Hawks, 248.5 point total. Booker ends up being the one to catch fire. I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day when he dropped that 62-point game. Was that the same day of Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns?
No,
it was the same day as Luka.
Booker and Luka did it on the same day.
Yeah, it was the same day as Luka. I don't know what his ownership was. My guess is his ownership was shockingly low on that day against the Pacers when he dropped 62.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, game before that he had 46-7, 44-4. Granted, the peripherals aren't going to give you much, but yeah, those monster games are just in play every time Booker steps on the floor. Anything else from Phoenix, or you want to flip to the other side of this one with the Hawks?
Let's go to the other side.
All right. So you've got this backcourt situation now where you got DeJounte Murray. What did he miss? One game, I think. 8,100. Trae Young, 9,600. Once again, it's a super high total, but none of these guys are pulling ownership like Phoenix. And that isn't to say Phoenix is the most popular team on the slate, but 3% owned Trae Young is the highest of any Hawk right now.
I got 18.
Yeah.
And I like that positive leverage we're showing. We have him 8.5 optimal, 3.5% owned, +5 leverage, looking pretty good for today. We're talking 1.3 to 1.35 fantasy points per minute, 30% usage for Trae Young, 40% assist rate for Trae Young. He's playing 36 minutes a night. I like him as the pivot more so than I like Devin Booker in this moment in comparison to that Shea ownership.
That's what I was going to ask you. Why?
I like that little bit of, honestly, I don't totally know. I like that little bit of that extra $300 certainly helps. I've got these guys only separated by a single fantasy point. If we look at both of them, let's see. Devin Booker, 1.35 fantasy points per minute over the past 30 days. Trae is at 1.28. So, nothing too crazy on that end. It's still a solid matchup for Atlanta too. Not a great Phoenix defense. They play at a reasonable enough pace that you're not like just nerfing the Hawks, but something is driving me to a little bit more Trae Young right now. And that's what we're seeing in that boom bust tool. Like my lineups don't get made based on that leverage, but it is following that leverage. And that makes me feel like something is there.
Okay. They feel almost identical here. I mean, obviously they'll get it done in different ways. Trae Young, less likely to just implode on you because of that upside as a playmaker, but also less likely to give you the 45-point game.
Like if Atlanta wins, you feel great about getting to Trae Young at the beginning. Whereas if Phoenix wins, you're just like, oh, that could have been Durant.
Right. No, yeah, of course. Or,
which isn't like a real reason or anything like that, but it's just like how it feels in your brain.
Again, they feel just really, really similar in this spot. I think both of them.
And they are.
I think I would say at their current ownership, both of them look okay. I mean, as great of a play as SGA is, I mean, what if he really does? What if he does play 3 quarters? And yeah, when teams only play 3 quarters because they're blowing out another team by 40 after 3, obviously someone has to do something good. It's not just like, but God, LaMelo's doubtful. Hayward's still out. Like the whole, this is a bad Charlotte Hornets team. So I don't know. Shea getting 30, Booker and Young getting 5 and 3 respectively in a game with a 248.5 total. And what's the spread on this game? 3 points.
Yeah.
3 points. That's all I'm saying. It's interesting.
Yeah. I like it. Like, I want to get to those pieces. It just appears that I'm getting to Trey over Booker. So I'm sure Booker will be the guy that everybody needed.
Yeah.
We all know how this works nowadays.
Anybody else for Atlanta?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you're seeing like, 5, 6, 7% ownership to, sorry, I clicked to Sacramento already. You're seeing like 5% ownership to Capella, a couple percentage points to DeJounte Murray. I took his less than on Prize Picks today. 3 for 4 this week. Crushing. Absolutely crushing.
Beautiful. Yeah, I liked that tweet earlier. Sean Dre said, don't play for blowouts. The Lakers beat Boston last night. I don't. And I wouldn't recommend doing that. I'm saying that.
Nope.
What I'm saying is one of them's 30% owned as a 16-point favorite. The others are 5 and 3% owned. So, that's all. Anyway, let's talk about Sacramento and Indiana. Another 248.5 total game. There's some low total games scattered about today as well, but these two back to back, a lot of points going to be scored. Benedict Mathurin questionable. Look, it's not technically, but I'm just throwing Halliburton as questionable right now in my own mind because I don't know if he's going to play on the second of a back-to-back, having played low 20s in minutes in 2 games since returning. I just don't really know what to make of that.
Same. My guess is Halliburton doesn't play, but I can't project it like that. And I assume he's not going to be I don't expect him to be a game time decision. He's either going to get ruled out when they drop their injury report at 1:30 or he's going to be in, is my expectation. But on the Sacramento side, there's one guy you can get to, and that's going to be Kevin Huerter. He's 30% owned. Now we have him with negative leverage. I'm still more than okay getting to him. I have 28%. Been playing well as of late, and boy, oh boy, are those minutes up. And they are just absolutely saying, stick your ass on the bench, Malik Monk. 19, 19, 20, and 14 minutes for Monk over the last 4. 33, 30, 37, and 39 for Kevin Huerter. Those minutes just appear to be there now. They are really locking down the starting rotation. And if you can get a $5,100 shooting guard playing well north of 30 minutes, I think you got to do that. He looks, I think, like the best thing we've talked about so far.
Yeah, against the Pacers, no less.
Yeah, great, incredible matchup.
It really is. And it's not like he's devoid of volume either. Look, he's not going to come out there and command a 30% usage rate playing alongside Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. We know that. But he's anytime you can get up, 8 threes per game and you're at least out there long enough to collect a few peripherals, it looks pretty good. You're right, though. 37, 39 minutes, each of his last 2. It is, looking at this spot, though, right? Domantas Sabonis, 5% owned right now. We essentially have no leverage in either direction. I think we have him at 5% optimal. But going up against one of the fastest paced teams in the league, the Pacers on the season, second in pace behind only the Wizards. Defensive rating sits at what? It's right there with the Hawks that we were just talking about. They're essentially 4th worst in basketball. Offensively, who knows if Halliburton's going to play? But this is also another team that's good offensively. Do you have anything on Sabonis or Fox, given that they're virtually unowned today?
I only have 8% Sabonis. That might actually go away. His points prop is 20.5, and I have him projected for 23 points. So right away, I feel like I'm a little off. He's got a 13.5 rebound prop juiced to the under. I'm at 13.5, and I'm still barely getting to him. I think it's going to be pretty easy to not get to him. There's just too many centers in that 7-8K range to get to. Like, yes, I expect Sabonis to do some revenge narrative stuff and have a big game here against Indy, but I'm not at all expecting to get a bunch. Fox has just been dreadful lately. He's normally a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. He's at a fantasy point per minute on the dot over the last 30 days. Now, I don't have him projected like that. I'm back up over 1.2 because of this matchup. Still can't get to him. I have 2%. I find it very hard to get anything for Sacramento other than Keegan Murray.
You know what the Sabonis triple-double odds are today?
I mean, given the amount of assists that he's been getting recently, it's got to be pretty damn good. Let's go plus 180.
On FanDuel, you're spot on.
Nice.
On DraftKings, though, plus 145.
Oof.
So obviously, if you're betting that, you're going straight to FanDuel. But look, man, Sabonis, this is what you're saying is more so that just as a casualty of the slate, Sabonis isn't fitting all that much because there's depth at center. But
yeah,
just from like raw.
On a raw points perspective, I mean, he looks fantastic. He is putting up really nice stat lines, but he's already 10-4. Like the price is already there. He's the most expensive play on today's slate.
I know, isn't that crazy? He's essentially neck and neck with SGA. It does make me wonder though, on a 9-gamer, if we get considerable news that breaks and then you start getting a lot of these really cheap guys opening up, which we see all the time throughout the afternoon and drawing closer to lock for these bigger slates, hell, even smaller slates like we saw yesterday, does it not become more feasible that you can just drop 2 of those 9K plus guys into lineups without an issue, and then Sabonis becomes more appealing?
I doubt it, just because of center. That's just such a different position. Like, especially, what if center is the spot where you start to open up any of the value? Then you're even though you're getting the value, you're blocking him out then too. I just think it's really hard to get to him at 10,400. I think what we're seeing in our optimal odds and our ownership is correct.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, Sabonis could actually become lower owned if center value opens up.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just didn't want to leave anything, untouched there, just because like, this is one of those Kings teams where, you have a lot of ownership going to Herter and then nobody else, but Sabonis is just really, really good. Aside from that though, like you said, you can't confidently get to someone like Monk at 5,300. Barnes is 5K. Murray's 6,100. Trey Lyles is 3,200. Those guys are all getting like 6-7% ownership, including Sabonis. Seems to make sense just given the atmosphere, like just given the environment of this game and nothing else.
It's interesting to see 8% ownership to Trey Lyles at 3,200 power forward center and no ownership to Danilo Gallinari, 3,300 power forward center. One of those guys is better than the other on a per minute basis, and it's not Trey Lyles.
My guess is if we get news that Gallinari's starting, we see ownership come up there for sure.
Of course.
Like, I'm saying this might just be kind of a hedge early in the day, not really knowing.
Sleep at the wheel. Remember where you heard it. Right here.
Any interest in well, teams do that shit a lot though, where your guy gets injured in game and the out of halftime adjustments aren't the same as you see for the next game where they've had time to plan a starting lineup out.
Very true.
What are you doing with Miles Turner, Jalen Smith? I don't know what's going on with Halliburton right now.
No, I mean, there's basically nothing we could say about Indy. They're on a back-to-back. Mathurin didn't play again yesterday. We don't know the status of Halliburton in this spot. We've had multiple Q tags on Jalen Smith and Miles Turner lately too. So what I can say is this. If Miles Turner and Jalen Smith are both in, they split the center minutes yesterday. I went 27-21. We have it at 27 and basically 21. Jalen Smith showing up as a really positive leverage option. I have 16% of him at 4% ownership, $4,400 power forward center. I still like Miles Turner at 6,100 if you think he can get around that 67 or around that 27-minute mark. After that, you just have to sit back and relax and figure out who's going to actually be playing for this team. Because if you take Halliburton off the floor and then you take Benedict Mathurin off the floor, well, then we're probably giving a bunch of minutes to Buddy Hield. We're probably giving a bunch of minutes to Andrew Nembhard. Neesmith gets a bump. You bring TJ McConnell back into the rotation because he is not in there now. But if you get both of those guys in, then everything that I just said doesn't exist. We don't know what these guys are doing at all. We need their injury report. This is a deeper dive question.
100%. Yeah. And the good thing is we have plenty of time to figure that out. I will say, you may want to reevaluate your stance on Domantas Sabonis.
Because Sean V's stupid?
Because Sean V is riding the hot hand lately.
That's the stupid shit that I hate so much. To describe him as a superb play is just a poor use of the English language. It makes you not, it takes the meaning of words away if you describe him as a superb play. It's just why have verbiage then? What is that? If he's a superb play, what the hell is Kevin Huerter then? Like, what's superb is already, like 8.5 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Well, how do we describe people after that? You just learn how to use words correctly and it might work better.
Well, okay. So maybe he'd say Kevin Huerter is a more superb play.
Yeah, there we go. Great. What a wordsmith.
So it's just tiered superb.
Hemingway-esque.
I don't know. What other superlatives would you prefer we attach to this? None?
You don't use the wrong words to describe plays. That's all you have to do. Superb could still work. You just can't use it to describe him. If guys if $3,900 Lou Dort exists today, what do we call him?
I don't know, dude. All I'm saying is you might want to course correct.
I would rather live on the streets from my picks than listen to his picks.
Pulling for you, Sean.
This one, for example. Tatum was my play in the morning, but he wasn't my play. That was all way before the news. As if Jason Tatum's status changed yesterday based on the news. Somehow, news came out, and one of the premier pay-up options looked worse. That's what we're trying to say right now. That's the sentence. That makes absolutely no sense.
And they lost, so you would have thought that he would be even better in hindsight. If I had to guess, Sean, and I want to hear your reasoning on Tatum, was the reasoning that he no longer became your play because there was some narrative with AD and LeBron being on the floor?
Incredible.
I need to know, this is something I would like to know. I would like to know. But let's move on for now. What do you say? Let's not stall this out any further.
I'm going to have a heart attack right now. I'm ready to scream.
Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. We're almost at 100 here, and we appreciate you guys hanging out and making the NBA Stochastic Strategy Show your place. No, hold on. Your morning destination for all things DFS basketball. I knew it. I knew it, Sean. I knew it. See, I can read Sean like a book, bro. I told you. It had something to do with the LeBron and Davis. And see, he said Tatum wasn't up for it.
So just to be clear here, Jason Tatum was a great play when he was going to go against LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But when they made the matchup easier, Jason Tatum became a worse play.
Because he was no longer up for it.
Of course, obviously. I assume that was a text message sent. Like, hey, man, not going to be given the best effort tonight.
Well, I will say, Sean is vindicated in that Tatum was not up for it. And they lost.
I'm not up for the rest of this show.
Yeah, all right. So anything else for no, we can't really talk more about the Pacers.
He should be a millionaire from betting player props. He should be limited everywhere to a penny at best with these takes if they were so good.
Well, Ross is giving Sean credit. Looks like a lot of chat is pro Sean V here.
They are mocking him to his face. They're not laughing with him. They're laughing at him.
You know what? Context is key, and I see no context.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. JMF, I'm team Sean V, man. Namdi said Sean V's my hero.
Being team Sean V is like being team Charlotte Hornets.
Look, I'm trying to be I'm trying to be neutral here.
Don't. Say what's on your mind.
Nah.
The truth shall set you free.
Sean Miller, Sean V equals GOAT. Yeah, man.
Yeah, like a GOAT. Yes, I agree. The Adam Sandler song. Got it. Chained up in a yard.
All right.
Somebody go find the chat when he recommends Tatum as his. I'm almost positive he was like, Tatum is the best play on today's slate. I'm almost positive of that. Somebody needs to go pull up yesterday's video and get through chat.
Well, there's a lot of right now just indistinguishable information as to whether, Sean V or Josh holds the upper hand in the battle of NBA knowledge and DFS plays. One thing I can tell you for sure, the Sims tool, there is nothing there is nothing up for question about that, Josh. Crypto Go DFS yesterday tweets us. This is, by the way, I don't even have to recycle screenshots because it's just every single day there's a new one. Yes. Stochastic Sim, simply the best out there. If only Clarkson didn't choke on his free throws at the end. Big shout out to the usual Live Before Lock crew. The NBA Sims tools, borderline cheating, worth every penny. Keep up the great work. Second place in the fadeaway, dude. Second place in the fadeaway for 30K. Another stochastic avatar. Our boy, Eddie Lott, one of the best players out there. Third place, chopped third place for 6K. The hits just keep on coming, man. It is something else. Really is. Oh, look, this guy won the Lil Soupy won the mini max as well. They keep, whether it's the Sims tool or the lineup generator. We had our friend win the mini max and the 4-point play with the lineup generator just 2 days ago. Whatever it is, man, you're gonna want to try them out. Yeah. Even if you hate it, here's what I can say. I can say this with almost near certainty. Like, even if you hate this, after the week, links in the description and in chat for the Sims tool or the lineup generator, which best entry level affordable tool that you're going to find in the industry. Could guarantee it. Josh would agree. Yeah. If nothing else, and you've said this many times, even if you're like, you know what, at the end of the day, this isn't for me, you will be unquestionably making better lineups than you make on your own. And the results, the proof is in the pudding here. We're just seeing it left and right with these type of wins, be it the Sims tool or the lineup generator, every day, every week, NFL, NBA, everything, man. It's happening. It's all coming together.
You should sign up for the Sims tool at stochastic.com because it's going to make you a better DFS player. If you go to seanv.com, you can sign up for the Simps tool, which is going to be slightly different.
What's the price on that?
I got nothing on that
one. For real though, if you guys want to check it out, the Sims tool, you already know, but the contest generator is essentially replicating the field that you're going to be in. And then you go and you sim these contests tens of thousands of times. You can select your payout, okay? Whether it's like 10% the first, which would be the 4-point play generally, or 30% the first, which is the fadeaway. You can select your contest size. Then you can boost and deboost players. You can upload custom projections or just use the projections we have and tweak them that way. Million different ways to do it. The late swap tool is massive for that, but also the lineup generator, $14.99 a week. Remember, you're playing DFS, you're playing NBA every single day. So that's what? $14.99 a week. It's essentially $2 a day to just get good lineups. That we're using the Sims for that. It's just a lighter version. You can see all of your lineups, the ones you love, upload them straight to CSV. Once you're done, see your exposures, all of your lineups in one place, keep the ones you like, discard the ones you don't like. And each lineup that you get, of course, you can swap players out, you can lock players, but each lineup you get, you can see the optimal projection. You can see how chalky or contrarian it is, and then go from there. So I know Josh has talked a lot about the lineup generator in previous shows, just because of like the ease of access it gives you to good lineups is unlike anything else. So
I love the lineup generator, man. That is the perfect tool for the large majority of people that are watching this show. And instead of just like making up stuff like chat, this is going to spit out high level lineups for you right out of the gate. If you want to make a tweak or something, go for it. But the structure you're going to get out of that, you're just going to start from a much better. It's like getting a head start in a race.
Right. So, by the way, links in the description and in chat for all of that stuff. If you have questions, my DMs are always open. Yeah, like a head start. Essentially, Sean V's head start on you when it comes to the slate each morning. Orlando, Minnesota, 211 total here. Let's talk about the Orlando Magic first. All right, so Sean, we're only getting like 2% ownership to the highest. All right, I'm done. There's no ownership going to Orlando whatsoever here. 2% to Franz Wagner. Outside of that, Banchero's getting like 1%. I know we're going to talk about Minnesota, and that looks markedly different than this Orlando team, but very low implied total for the Magic today. And they're probably going to play a decent amount of guys.
This game is tough to talk about. Now, I've been reading chat a lot, so I admittedly have not been listening to you, but I'm pretty sure you said Orlando.
What do you mean? Oh, yeah. I was talking about Orlando.
So, there's nothing here. This is the number 1 defense, the number 4 defense. Neither team plays at a particularly fast rate. The total is terrible. Highest optimal rate is Paolo Banchero at 3. Highest ownership is Franz Wagner at 2.5. I don't have anything from Orlando. Watch the game. It's kind of fun. You don't play anything from the Magic.
Antonio asks, can you lock multiple players with the lineup generator or just one? We have, I don't like to call them guardrails, Josh, but like we have certain things put in place because
bumpers.
we don't. What's that?
They're like bumpers for bowling.
They're bumpers, yeah.
Yeah, it's like what Sean V would use if he had to go bowling. It's a child's thing, but some adults may need it.
No, he would use the thing where you
the
put
ramp.
Yeah.
And it'd be strike after strike, I'm sure.
We put the ramp up. But you lock one player. The reason though is because we don't want you making like we do set up bumpers. It's not like, oh, you guys, nobody knows what they're doing, but we set it up so like when you're doing that, we're still providing plus EV lineups. The last thing we want to do is be like, here's plus EV lineups. Go do what you want with them, make them, and then turn them into garbage.
Yeah, we're trying to help you. We're trying to save you from yourself in this one. So I think you can only lock one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
Yeah, you shouldn't want to lock more than that.
No, you don't.
If that guy's not showing up, that should be a tell.
Exactly. Yep. What about Minnesota?
So the Wolves are a little bit different. I think they're slightly more interesting than the Orlando side. Not by a lot. Like you've got Rudy Gobert in here at 9%. I think that's totally fine. I'd like to go back to Anthony Edwards at just 8,400, point guard, shooting guard eligible. We've got Towns with a little bit of positive leverage. We've got Rudy Gobert as the highest optimal dude from this team at 11%. But these guys are all in that like 5 to 10% range. That's sort of where it just stands. Get a little bit of Edwards, a little bit of McDaniels, Towns, Reed, Gobert. I think that's all fine. There's no priorities from Minnesota. They're just more playable than Orlando.
Richie Smalls. Sean V doesn't roll a bowling ball. He stares at the pins and they choose to lay down. That is an A+ comment right there.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that's a Chuck Norris joke.
It is, but it's funny.
No credit.
I'd like to suspend belief here and assume that that's pretty funny.
No, not me.
Charlotte and OKC, the Hornets 16-point dogs, 226 total. LaMelo's doubtful. Hayward and Mark Williams are still out. So just biggest dog on the slate by a pretty wide margin, like significantly bigger dog than Washington or Detroit in a game like this. What's up?
Sports Wiz knows what's up.
All right. Charlotte Hornets. Cody Martin's getting 16%.
Yeah.
That dude has crushed me lately.
He's not very good, but he looks good today.
Yeah. Well, he started at the point last game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely changes things. Before that, it was Ish Smith. I do understand it. Like, assuming you get the same starting lineup, I do get why $4,700 point guard, shooting guard eligibility would be pulling some ownership here.
Yep, and I agree with it. We've got him 16% owned, 14.5% optimal, in that 28 to 30 minute range. somebody's got to play those minutes. Like they just don't have much of a choice. And then you look at Brandon Miller, similar story. He's pulling a little bit of ownership, 8% optimal, 8% owned. I think he's fine. PJ Washington is 9% owned. We have him 13% optimal. We went an extra minute. I have him in at 30. We have him in at 31. So that's probably enough to just make that optimal rate climb a bit. I'm neutral to the field. Those are really the only three guys that I have any real interest in. You can always go to Nick Richards just because he's the starting center, and you can kind of always play starting centers that aren't atrocities, and he's not. But it is very difficult to like grabbing things from Charlotte in a matchup against the top 5 offense, top 5 defense in OKC, even without Jalen Williams. This is a terrible spot. There's a reason they're 16-point dogs.
No question. I wanted to see what just looking at our leverage score on Cody Martin.
It's negative 1.4.
Yeah, I mean, which is pretty neutral. I mean, we have him almost 15% optimal. So yeah, I guess you said it the best. He's a perfectly reasonable play.
Yeah, that 15% ownership is well warranted.
PJ Washington actually has the highest leverage score for Charlotte today in our boom bust tool.
He looks good. The power forward eligibility at 5,900 is massive. We see him get tons of minutes. He played the final 18 minutes of the game to get to 36 off the bench. Everybody thought he was going to start last time out, and then they went to Bryce McGowan's. So if you can get that 30, 32, I just think it's very difficult to assume that PJ Washington plays the entire fourth quarter in this particular matchup.
Right. You're saying if it gets out of hand?
Yeah, when it gets out of hand.
Right. What was the closing line on that Lakers Celtics game last night?
No idea.
No.
Chad will probably tell you. It had to be massive.
Right. Stranger things have happened though.
I mean, Charlotte can win this game. I obviously don't actually believe saying that it's just going to be like a boat race, but
yeah, no, of course not.
15.5.
So yeah. PJ Washington over the last 3 games that he's played has a 28% usage rate. He's $5,900. So, I like getting to him. I'm nervous about it. If he's not starting, I'm nervous about his minutes because he is very likely to not play late in the fourth. Totally disagree. And I think a lot of times there's a misconception that because you're...
Hold on. You said totally disagree.
Totally agree. I'm sorry.
Okay. You said totally disagree. And then you went into all the things that I knew you were about to say. And I was like, that sounds like an agreement.
I was going to say we get these questions all the time where it's like, well, he's playing off the bench. Maybe they get the blowout run. But when you're the first guy, when you're a key player off the bench, you get hurt the most by any blowout, not the starters. You get hurt the most because then what do you play? A 4-minute rotation in the second half, and then you're just done.
Yeah, potentially. It's not ideal. Not ideal circumstances if he's coming off the bench.
The only reason I didn't want to just overlook him entirely is because outside of Bridges, and then I know Brandon Miller has seen considerable usage as well. You're just not expecting anyone else to be that guy. PJ Washington can come out and end up being that guy.
Absolutely.
And if he is, there's a chance that he's keeping the game close. I mean, we saw him single-handedly claw them back at home against the Spurs the other day to keep blowout run from ensuing. So, it's one of those weird spots, just a huge dog, but if it's close, you could see a big PJ Washington. If not, PJ Washington's a guy you don't want to be anywhere near.
Apparently, Sean V's play of the day is going to be 43% owned Fred VanVleet. So heroic take on that one. Yes, that's the guy you should be playing. I totally agree.
We will get there.
Not the 4% owned Domantas Sabonis, who's superb.
What are you doing with SGA on the other side? Let me just point out, we have real negative leverage on SGA and Lou Dort today.
Yeah.
Lou Dort probably less important just given the fact that he's so cheap. But we have SGA with 15% optimal.
Yeah, I think it's a value thing for right now. I think he's pretty difficult to get to. I'm going to bury him for a second and talk about the actual best play on today's slate.
Go for it.
Excuse me. That's going to be Lou Dort. 3,900 today. Small forward only. We have him projected for 45% ownership. 33.5% optimal. I have him in 84% of my lineups. We don't have a ton of other value to differentiate getting off of Dort, but no Jalen Williams playing at least 30 minutes. Are his per minute rates great? No, they're not. But with no Jalen Williams around, if he's playing 30 minutes, that $3,900 price tag is a dream scenario here. He's as good of a value piece as you're ever going to get, because you don't usually get legitimate starters to get priced like this in a situation where someone is out, because it's not like you're getting this new dude that's 3,900 stepping into the rotation where you don't really know what they're going to do. That's not what we have here in Lou Dort. Lou Dort played 36 and a half minutes last time out with Jalen Williams out. I gave him 30. We gave him 31. He's the best play on the slate because he's the easiest guy in the world to roster.
Definitely surprising to see that many minutes on a team that loves to go deep into the bench.
Yeah. I can't believe he's 3,900. Like, has he been playing shitty? He has. Like, very shitty. He 0.65 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. But he unquestionably gets a bump in usage with no Jalen Williams around. He's just going to be on the floor at least a little bit more, and if not a lot bit more. The only downside really is the 16-point line. But I don't really think that matters as much to someone like Dort, because you're not investing major salary. He's about as cheap as you're going to get.
No, I think it matters a whole lot more to SGA. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm light on SGA right now, but I think that is just a testament of the difficulty of getting to the top today without any other real owner, like pay down options other than Dort. So I only have 8%. We have him projected for 30. I'm a bit of a believer right now in that negative leverage. That said, like, I love the idea of getting to Shea. He should absolutely eviscerate this Charlotte Hornets team, but they could also play Shea 26 minutes. This is one of those spots where you can get the double blowout, and that's where it gets crazy, where OKC's defense proves to be a really big problem. Charlotte can't do anything. And if you get like a 60th percentile offensive game out of the Thunder, that doesn't necessarily mean they're great DFS plays, but they're then beating the shit out of Charlotte very early.
No, it becomes a problem is what it becomes a problem.
Number 5 offense, number 5 defense against 28th and 30th. And reminder, Terry Rozier is not a part of this offense any longer. LaMelo Ball isn't a part of this offense right now. Gordon Hayward's not on the floor. Mark Williams is not on the floor. This is bad for Charlotte.
If Charlotte has 57 points through 3 quarters, it doesn't really matter what OKC has done offensively.
No, they could be up 20 and still not playing all that well.
Yep, exactly. And to your point, Lou Dort could finish with 18, and you're not stoked about it, but it's not a death sentence.
No. And he's going to have a lot of it. He'll look different once we get a couple other guys in that like 4K-ish range, but he's going to be the best point per dollar play you can get to today unless something breaks.
Comparatively speaking to SGA.
Yeah.
Like if SGA has 35 after 3, you could be in trouble.
Very much so.
Or he could have 55 through 3.
Yeah. And then never see the floor again.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk people off of Shea. He's the best pay up option. It's bar none. He is the best guy you could pay up for today. But it is a bit of a scary spot. You got to be aware of what you're getting here. I honestly sort of like the idea of like having a Miles Bridges or like a Brandon Miller on the opposite side if you have SGA. I like the idea. Like, I don't care if you have anybody from Charlotte if you just have Dort. But if you have SGA, I kind of like the idea of having something from Charlotte. But I kind of want to have a lot of OKC. I think these guys look really good.
They do. But I just keep coming back to this guard position, the high-priced guards today. What a fascinating spot. Like, SGA 30%, Booker and Trae Young, what do we say, 5% and 3% respectively? Yeah, it's just it's a really interesting spot. Steph 94. I mean, Steph facing Memphis today. That's another spot where they're big favorites on the road. But
yeah,
Steph Curry coming off back-to-back 60 fantasy point games. He's pulling 1.8% ownership.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good pivots. That's just the problem right now with like the 8 to 9K range of guards.
Right.
It's loaded. So you look at somebody and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, that guy should be getting a little bit more love. I like him as a pivot. And then you go to find out that there's like 7 versions of him. Exactly. And then you realize why everything is just so scattered.
But that's also why these slates become more interesting, is because all of these guys, Steph, Trae, Booker, a bunch of them, maybe not in like the ideal situation like SGA, but they're all really fucking good.
They are.
And when you have guys like that, sometimes it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. But like when push comes to shove, these guys all have similar ceilings, even though their median projections might be a little bit different.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, I think also once we get closer to lock, once we have more news on injuries and also just updated ownership throughout the day, it'll probably no more by the deeper dive live before lock anyway.
For sure.
Also, won't have to worry about too much. 1 hour window in between games, 7 and 8.
Love it. That's it. Love it.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, I get to sleep like a normal human being.
I
mean, today it doesn't matter because tomorrow's Saturday, so like I don't give a shit if I'm up till midnight. I'll sleep till noon.
In general.
But on a normal day, it's so great, dude. My life sucks when you're up till 10:30 and you've got the process at 6:30.
I mean, like you said, you could stay up as late as you want, but maybe you want to do something after the 8 p.m. game locks.
Yeah, I know my wife would really appreciate seeing me during the week.
I used to love when All-Star break would fall over Valentine's Day.
It was the best.
I'd be like, don't worry, babe. No DFS for me today.
That's my birthday time too, man. It's everything.
All right. New Orleans, San Antonio.
Oh, speaking of things, I want to get this out here right now. This is actually a real legitimate plug. No nonsense here. Trade deadline show. NBA trade deadline coming up Thursday. So 6 days from now, I think. Am I right or am I a week early? Trade deadline. Yeah, Thursday, February 8th. I'm going to go live somewhere around like 1:30, depending on when the news is coming in. We'll go all the way up until probably like 3:30. Take care of every single thing that's coming in for the NBA. I've been doing this for a couple years now. Not going to change. So make sure you're checking that out. Again, this coming Thursday, going live for the NBA trade deadline.
A really fun show. I jumped on with you for a while a couple of years ago with the Harden trade.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Which ultimately I have no issues with that. In hindsight, no issues with it at all.
No, it was a good trade.
I also think Harden legitimately helped develop Tyrese Maxey because it sure
without question,
right? It wasn't Doc Rivers.
Yeah.
Wasn't Doc Rivers.
We have to remember that, like, no matter what we think about the way that James Harden is like quitting on teams or whatever, we're talking about a guy that is like a high level Hall of Famer. That's incredible to learn from.
Right.
I'm sure he's an all like. I doubt Tyrese Maxey hated him. I bet he looked up to him. Everybody.
So many people around here are like, man, I can't stand Harden. You shouldn't look at it that way. Like, no. Maxey has admitted, he openly admitted that Harden helped him, evolve his game leaps and bounds further than he ever would have been able to do on his own. Like, Harden was starring in the NBA as like a league MVP, and Tyrese Maxey was like a 9th grader. Yeah. Like, all he's doing is watching James Harden. Can you imagine learning from him? Yeah, it's got to be incredible. I wonder if Embiid learned some stuff from him too. Like, I know they're different style of player, but you have to, right? Of course. He's going to learn how to leave his team soon at this rate. Well, got a torn meniscus, so not sure where he's going quite yet. But yeah, I'd say net positive overall. What could they get for him? What could they get for him? It's everything, right? Like, it's a full package of picks. It's 4 firsts, 3 swaps. Like, yeah. Like, but but that's the thing. Like, who does he go to that's willing to give all of that up, but it also makes them the team? Because in order to do this is such an easy answer. It's not even funny. If you want to be serious and take the risk, if you want to try to win a title, I'm listening. He becomes the starting center for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah. And they have 1 million picks. The draft compensation in that, like, by the way, Joel Embiid is never going to Oklahoma City. I want to be very clear here. Sure. But I'm talking like basketball wise, you want to win a title? Go to Oklahoma City. They have an infinite amount of draft picks to do it that won't even affect them moving forward. They can give out 8 picks right now and not be encumbered in their future. Won't even be an issue. Stack on a couple extra dudes, throw Josh Giddey into that deal as some salary ballast and another young guy. They have infinite young dudes that just don't even play for them right now. Do the Thunder have any picks? Everybody's going to say the Knicks, but you got to get Julius Randle out to be able to do that. Yeah, that doesn't work. Do the Thunder have picks that how many of the picks are from teams that are going to finish towards the bottom of the league, like legitimate lottery
They
style
have
picks?
they have legitimate high end assets.
Right.
They've got a
That's what
bunch
I'm
of
on.
way out Brooklyn picks.
Because that becomes
Um,
even more valuable instead of like, oh, well,
yeah,
well now we're going to compete for a championship and you can
yeah.
grab our, 28th overall pick or something like that. If you have legitimate picks from teams that are going to finish in the lottery, that looks really good.
They're going to be just downright loaded.
Yeah, this team
Loaded.
set it up well, man.
I'm trying to look and see if there's another team that immediately jumps out. I mean, the Pelicans as well would be pretty interesting to pull that one off if you can use CJ as the salary. But I don't love the Zion Embiid fit, and that
I
obviously
I
introduces some
hate the
wild shit.
Zion. I hate the Zion Embiid fit.
I'm just thinking
Also,
about teams that have the capacity to do it.
right, I get it.
Like
Also,
they have the picks, so they could do it.
I'll say this though. One reason New Orleans would never do it, and this is not just like picks or talent, you can't have two like seriously injury prone guys as your foundational pieces on your team. You can't do that.
Probably not.
Like
No.
you can't trade away the farm to get Embiid when you're
No.
already dealing with Zion Williams constantly being injured,
Maybe
That would be
that's
real
maybe
tough.
he's the guy that goes out in that deal. You don't have to give up as much assets.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Zion, speaking of the Pelicans, how's this for a
I got to
segue?
put a pin in this one first. I got to hit the other guys that look good from Oklahoma City.
All right, kill my segue. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but we're missing out on a couple
All
other
right,
guys.
go
I've got
for it. Go for it.
24%
Go
of
for
Josh
it.
Giddey at 12% ownership. I've got a decent chunk of Jalen Williams with a Y, flat 3K center, playing around 15, 16 minutes. Interesting value option when there is no value. Chet for 7,600 is in and around 7% owned. I think that's reasonable. You've got $3,600 Aaron Wiggins, who played about 22 minutes last time out, small forward, power forward. He's 11% owned. We have him a little bit negatively leveraged, but I'm getting to a bunch of Oklahoma City in this spot, and it's not just the Lou Dort and Shea pieces.
Okay. The ownership on Dort is what? 45 we have him at right now? Yeah.
Yeah, too low.
Let's talk about the Pels. Zion's questionable, so that could make things interesting. Herb Jones is questionable. Larry Nance is questionable. Again, this might be more of a deeper dive thing, but maybe we can glean some insight from the last game, Josh, and what we've seen with Zion out this year. I don't know. I mean, if Zion ends up sitting, do we see any real legitimate top value at the current price points come into play here? Because it is a very good matchup.
It is a very good matchup. We've got Zion pulling some decent ownership, BI pulling some ownership, CJ pulling some ownership. I am very light on this New Orleans team right now if everybody is in. Now we have Zion. Zion has a 21.5 point prop on FanDuel. I got him projected for 22. He's got a 4.5 assist prop. That is, I got him at 4.2. And he's got a 5.5 rebound prop juice to the under. I have him at 5.7, so I'm higher there. We are 4 points higher than me in fantasy point projection for Zion. I have 0% of him right now. If I'm to believe the prop market right now, he should not be owned at 19%. That is an ownership level that is way too high for what I see. In that case, I would probably have a little bit more interest in Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum, maybe a little bit of interest in a $4,300 Herb Jones. I'm finding it difficult to get to the Pels, but they also might just look way different in 6 hours.
In the event that Jones and Zion are both still out, Nance played last game, but I believe Jones and Zion were both out, right? Yeah, both of them were out. Who becomes the biggest beneficiaries of this situation? And how
if they're both out again?
If they're both out again, and how owned do you think they would be?
Trey Murphy just steps into the starting lineup, shooting guard, small forward, 4,700. Gonna pick up a decent chunk of ownership. If they start Dyson Daniels again, he'll be point guard, small forward, 3,500. Now, we saw in that last game, Daniels only got to 24 minutes. That's a little bit less interesting. Najee Marshall, certainly starts flying off the page at 3,900 power forward only. You start to create a lot of semi-interesting value plays if you lose them both. But it's Trey Murphy, it's Najee Marshall, and it's Dyson Daniels if he starts again. It's like the value pieces you want to get to. I don't think I have to tell anybody why you would play Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum. I don't think that's what your question is.
That was not the question. No, they would clearly become much better options, and they would be more popular than they are right now. Looking at the Spurs on the other side. So San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama, 90 up to 9,300. 10% ownership. The most ownership right now is going to Trey Jones at 5,500. Is this a team you're looking to get to with some volume today?
No. Not really. I think the Trey Jones play is fine. Obviously, like any Wemby you want to get to is totally fine. If he can ever fall into a couple extra minutes, I don't know if that's possible. I really do think just like something at 30 is sort of just no matter what, that's what you're going to get, which kind of limits you. I have 16% Wemby. That works. Like Devin Vassell is always at least a little bit interesting to me. He gets an MPE, he's a mid 6K price tag. He's a fantasy point per minute guy when he's out there. Those are really the only three guys that I see as anything viable for San Antonio, but I don't see a priority.
Let's talk about the Warriors then.
Let's do it.
25% going to Draymond Green. He continues to pull decent ownership, just given that his price hasn't really budged all that much recently.
Yeah,
he's probable to play here as well. But I mean, yes, he was like what, mid to high 5K price point. Started seeing minutes, but he's still low 6K player. Last game against Philly, 29 minutes, sure, but 46 in that. Was that the 2 OT game?
Yeah,
against the Lakers.
No,
So,
he only sat for 2 minutes in regulation.
Yeah, that'd be insane. Well, no, I wasn't. I couldn't remember if it was 1 or 2 overtimes.
Gotcha.
But fair. Still, 41 minutes would have been insane.
Yeah,
even in regulation for Dre. But yeah, 31 before that. So there's definitely something to be said about the playing time here. Again, there is real blowout risk, even with the Warriors being on the road. I know they're not massive, OKC over Charlotte favorites, but they are 8-point favorites against a complete skeleton crew Memphis team.
Yeah.
Do you think Green is appropriately owned, or do you think he's over-owned in this spot?
I think he's way over-owned.
He feels like it, and I think our tools would suggest the same.
No, they wouldn't.
Actually, no, we have Kuminga negatively leveraged, not Dre.
Yeah, look, I'm going to go back to the prop markets right now. Draymond has an 8.5 juice to the under points prop. I have him at 9.1, so I'm like a real point ahead of his prop right now. We also have a rebounding prop that's set at 7.5 juice to the under. I have 7.8, so I'm over that mark as well. And then the assist prop is at 6.5 juice to the over. I have 7. I have him projected for 32.5 fantasy points in 33 minutes, right around a fantasy point per minute. I'm basically 5 short of us. So at 37.5, yeah, he is well worth 25% ownership. But we're not seeing that in the betting markets right now to justify that sort of those sorts of rates on Draymond. And that is, I think, why I'm not getting even anywhere near that 25% ownership. I think he looks like a good play. I have him at 5x his salary, like 6,300 power forward center. I am interested in Draymond, just not at 25% ownership. Who was that we talked about earlier today that was basically the exact same thing?
Bradley Beal.
Yeah, it's the same situation. I think Draymond should be like 15% owned, and then everything makes sense, and you probably get like 15% of them. But if he's in a quarter of the lineups, I think it's too much.
How about Jonathan Kuminga here? Dario Saric is out, by the way, but Kuminga's already playing pretty significant minutes right now. He played, 39 minutes in regulation last game?
This is where it really starts to break for me. He's a better play than Draymond Green. They both have power forward eligibility, but we have Draymond 26% optimal and Kuminga 8.
Kuminga's been excellent.
Yeah. Agreed. He's a great play. He's an absolutely great play.
He really is. I mean, he's the best player on the Warriors.
I have 22% of Kuminga. I think his ownership is justified for what we're getting. Small forward, power forward is more usable than power forward center is for Draymond. I like Clay too as well at shooting guard, small forward. He's pulling 13% ownership. I have 16. It's a good price point. And it's a really nice matchup against this Memphis team.
We mentioned earlier Steph Curry just being another one of those really talented, high upside guards that's getting no ownership. And maybe there's some leverage there. I don't think you're going to land on a lot of Steph Curry, but I
No.
also don't think you'd be upset if you got a little bit more Steph Curry than the field either.
No, not at all. Like if I had 15% of him, I'd be real cool with it, but I only have 2% as of right now. I got the Trey instead,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And there's Booker in that conversation on top of that. So
Yeah.
it's a
Curry
tough
looks
one.
superb. Clay looks superb. Von Looney looks superb. Andrew Wiggins looks superb. Brandon Pajemski looks superb. See what happens when you just use words that don't mean anything? You could call everybody superb. There's no context any longer.
But what if he actually believes that Sabonis was a superb play?
He would be wrong.
But he was using that in the appropriate context for his own beliefs.
That makes sense. That's an interesting justification for everybody's actions moving forward. Well, I believed it, so that's not how life works.
I'm just telling you, man. Anyway,
if he's a superb play, the 150 maxers that play tonight are going to greatly disagree.
Can we wipe Memphis off the
planet?
Yeah, I mean, so Kennard, again, we don't know. Tillman was doubtful 15 minutes after the game started. So, like, who knows what's going on with him? Rose probably isn't back. Zaire Williams, I don't know. They're playing the second of a back-to-back today. Like, I don't think
we can't talk about these guys at all until the injury report comes out because we have no idea what they're doing here. Who's going to be in? Is Tillman in? Is Tillman out? Who's available? They played Trey Jamison yesterday. Didn't play Matt Hurt. Like I've got 46% Jaren Jackson Jr. right now. I would happily let that continue, but like Aldama played 38 minutes. Every time he does something like that, he ends up breaking and not being able to play. I think he was questionable yesterday too. I just trust nothing. I can't evaluate this game right now because we just don't know. They're a fake team without an injury report.
But if Tillman sits and Aldama, like I know you say breaks, but Tillman sits, Aldama coming off 34 and then 38 minutes. What do you do there? Power forward, center eligible?
A lot. You play a lot.
You kind of have to.
Yeah.
But that's what sucks about this team is you just don't want to. But you don't have much of a choice. We could talk more about this when we get to the deeper dive later. I think we'll know a lot more. And again, 8 p.m. lock, but that doesn't actually mean anything because all of these games have like 1, 2, 3, 5 games have an 8 p.m. lock. Yeah. 2 at 7, 2 at 7:30. Tells you all you need to.
It's a great timed slate.
Oh, it's awesome. I was so happy to see they chopped that 9 p.m. game off, actually.
I knew that one was a guarantee.
Yeah, because we actually have 9 games. So who cares?
That's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
Toronto and Houston.
Oh, damn, we're still not done?
This is it. This is a fun game.
No, it isn't.
What's that?
Well, the Houston side is.
Yes, that's specifically what I'm referring to. Oh, by the way, guys, Pascal Siakam on Sleeper today. Free square, 99% discounted, I should say. Half a point. So more or less than half a point. If you're on Sleeper, hammer that. Take advantage of essentially free money in this case. If you're not on Sleeper yet, links in the description and in chat. Up to $500 first match deposit bonus. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Even if you only have 20, you're turning it into 40.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Coming back.
It's a great pick'em site there. They have the dynamic pricing so you can actually take triple doubles or like anytime touchdown scores or home runs. Whereas with a lot of these other ones, you can't because they don't have dynamic pricing. You can up to 100 extra entries, up to 8 legs in any lineup. It's pretty sweet, man. So if you're not started yet, get the deposit bonus, take advantage of the free square on Siakam today. It's as easy as it gets. And I don't get these often at sports books. So if you can find them, get them. Sleeper's got one today. Pascal Siakam, half a point. Looking good. Toronto, 5-point dogs. Jeez, dude. Quickly, Barrett, Jakob Poeltl. All I know.
Just go straight to Houston.
I mean, can we at this point?
I mean, they're missing 3 or 4 like Q tags on 3 or 4 relevant dudes that have been missing a bunch of games as of late. If everybody's in, you don't play anybody from Toronto. Depending on who's out, that changes everything. But for right now, like they are impossible to break down.
They really are. And here's the advantage. Again, this is the last game we're talking about, but it's an 8 p.m. lock. So
Yeah.
less important. Let's talk about Houston.
The real important thing, I just want to just add one piece to that. Because you have all of these 5 o'clock or these 8 o'clock games, all 5 of them going off at the same time, like late swaps also become very easy. So you're not even concerned if this news comes in at 7:30 because 5 of the 9 games that play today are all locking at that same time. You're going to have multiple pieces in your lineup that make things a lot easier. It's not like this is the 8:30 start and the other 4 games close like lock before that.
Right.
So that's why I extra special don't care about any of this injury or news because of the way the slate's set up.
You're right. And more likely than not, this news ends up coming in before 7 of the games lock. Like this ends up probably coming in before the 2 7:30 games too.
I would imagine.
So yeah, I'm not guaranteed, obviously, but it might not mean a thing. Just be around from like 6:30 to 8 o'clock and you'll be fine. That's it.
Yep.
Matter of fact, 6:30 to 7:45 probably. But anyway, if Şengün plays, he hasn't missed any time this season really.
Nope.
Has he missed a game? I feel like he hasn't missed
a
single game. So if I had to guess, he plays. Man, since Jakob Poeltl went down, this Toronto team, they were middle of the road rebounding before Jakob Poeltl went down. He hasn't played since the 7th. Their rebounding has gone to shit, man. I mean, I know that Şengün's getting 19%. We can talk about VanVleet. You alluded to him earlier. I like Şengün a lot in this spot. I mean, it's a good spot, 230 total, whatever, but 5-point favorites. He's just remarkably good. He can contribute across the board in a number of different categories, but I think he can dominate on the offensive glass in a game like this, and that could take you a real long way. I'm not saying Poeltl's the be-all end. I think even if Poeltl plays, Şengün is fine. But if Jakob Poeltl is out, Porter's doubtful. Are we looking at Thaddeus Young at the 5 again, going up against Şengün, an $8,700 Şengün?
Yeah, they don't have a choice.
Right.
Yeah, they don't have a choice.
Like it's
I want this whole Houston team.
Big mismatch for Şengün.
I want this whole Houston team. They're my most exposed team on the slate. Now I'm neutral to Şengün, but I have 20% of him. I'm a little bit over on Jalen Green, who's been playing a lot better as of late. He's 12% owned. I've got 22. I've got a massive stand on Jabari Smith right now. 38% for me at 10% ownership, power forward eligible, somewhere around 0.9 fantasy points per minute. I think Dylan Brooks is an interesting option with us not having a ton of value. 4,700 shooting guard, small forward. You get some flexibility at a low owned price point. But Fred VanVleet is the second best play on today's slate behind Lou Dort. The only reason that I say that it's Dort is just because of his price. He's just easier to roster. 43% ownership coming into VanVleet. We have him 33% optimal. I'm guessing that's the highest optimal rate. If it's not Dort, I have 84% of Fred VanVleet right now. He and Dort are the two go-to guys in this moment. 6,900 for Fred VanVleet as a 1.05 fantasy point per minute guy playing 37 minutes a night. I have no idea why he's priced like this.
Tough to say. But Houston looks pretty good.
I have more exposure to Houston than I have any other team. We've got 97% projected for them in the aggregate. I have 192. I have almost as much exposure to VanVleet as the entire industry is projecting to the whole team.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Jalen Green's had a couple blow-up spots recently, too.
Sure has. Playing well. I like it.
Playing real well. Look at that. I actually didn't even remember that. 30-plus points in 3 of his last 4. 53-plus DK points in 3 of his last 4. Game log watching here, obviously, but the minutes have been big. The usage is up. Yeah,
four straight games north of positive 3.3 game EPM with a 5, a 6, and a 7. Those are elite totals.
And he's rebounding. Putting up big rebound totals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still subset. By the way, just to throw this out there, I know he was only 6K a couple days ago or a couple games ago, but and sure you can come back down to earth. We've seen him do it before, but still sub 7K for Jalen Green.
That's a good price. Like I said, I have 22%. I think he looks fantastic today here too.
DraftKings usually is chomping at the bit to take 1 or 2 good games and jack a price point up $2,000.
Yeah, not yet.
Not here. Anyway,
coming.
good stuff, man. Follow Josh at Josh Engleman, myself at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jacob for producing this one. What is Sean V's Twitter handle? I just wanted to shout that. We'll see you guys back here. Deeper Dive live before lock tonight, right here on the Stochastic YouTube channel. See you later, everyone.